People who hate themselves will hate others. And people who are angry with themselves will be angry at others. People who are impatient with others will be impatient with themselves, will be impatient with others. People who are unhappy with themselves will punish other people until they feel unhappy. It's just our nature as human beings. But when people are truly grateful for themselves or for their life, they're grateful for others. People who love themselves naturally love others. People who are okay finally with themselves are okay with others. It's just kind of how it is. So one of the things that people have as a limitation to the understanding of love is that they're feeling something other than it. And in order for us to find love, a part of us must die.
Ooh, wait. Why do we need to die to find love, or part of us?
Because anything that's not love in us must die.
Oh.
And that's the difference between knowing the path and walking the path, right? So one of the things that we want to teach people in the work that we do is to understand how to manage their energy, right? And how to manage their attention. When you feel love, which is just a word, by the way, and people have their own experience of what that is, you tend to feel more whole. And when you feel more whole, you tend to want less. When you truly feel love, it is very different than being selfish. You're kind of more selfless. And when you're in your heart, you're more prone to give, you're more prone to care, you're more prone to be present, you're more prone to be grateful, you're more prone to be kind. That's the consciousness of that center. It is the creative center. It's the union of opposites. It's the union of polarities. It's where oneness, where our divinity starts, right? There can't be enough said about that center. So if you just did an inventory of the amount of time you feel love during the day and the amount of time you feel other emotions like resentment or impatience or frustration or judgment or jealousy, any other one of those emotions, that is the opposite of love. Fear is not the opposite of love. It is the separation from love. Pain and suffering, they're not the opposite of love. They're the separation from it. That anger and hatred and hostility and violence, they're not the opposite of love. They're the separation from love, right? So then if you're living in survival, and living in survival is living in stress, and living in stress produces a cocktail of chemicals and hormones that make you feel something other than love. Turns out the majority of time people are feeling something other than love, and they're feeling some of those other emotions. So you only get good at what you practice, right? And those emotions will drive certain human behaviors that are primarily universal and will cause us to think in very predictable ways, right? So the separation from love because of an event or a trauma or whatever it is, causes people to view their life through a different lens than love, right? Okay, so teach a person how to stop feeling those emotions of survival, right? Because in survival, it's not a time to create.
No.
When you're in survival, it's not a time to communicate. It's not a time to learn. It's not a time to cooperate. It's not a time to get along. It's time to run, fight, or hide. And when you're in survival, you're very selfish. You're self-indulgent. You're self-important. You're self-aggrandizing. And you're full of self-pity. It's all about the self. We're self-involved in so many ways. And that means that once I'm okay and I'm happy, then everybody else could be happy. And so in survival, and we're feeling those emotions, we're doing everything we can to make that feeling go away, right? So it turns out that if you're in that state where you're in survival and it's not a time to create or not a time to love or not a time to open your heart, not a time to learn, you're compromised in a lot of ways. So bring that into a relationship with peers, with coworkers, with relatives, with family, with a partner. Then the fundamental question is, what would love do in a relationship? I think that's a really important question. Now, we have different relationships with different people, And because we've had experiences with different people, because we've had experiences with them, we have neurological circuitry that is a memory that we can relate to that person. In fact, I see you based on the memory I have of you. I'm filling in my idea of Lewis based on my memory of him. So I'm not really seeing you. I don't see things how they are. I see things how I am, right? So your brain only can see it equal to how it's mapped. So based on my experience, I super like you. You're a great guy. We get along. We have a lot of things in common. And so I see you that way. And the feeling that I have from my interactions with you causes me to be attracted to you. Like, you're a cool guy. We hang out. We have great conversations. And so when I see you, there is a sense of love. There's an energy. There's a connection. There's camaraderie. There's some type of union, right? Those are healthy relationships. And as long as we're honoring one another, that relationship will continue and foster really great outcomes. You have a relationship with someone like an ex or someone who's betrayed you, you have a different memory of that person based on your experience.
Which triggers a different feeling, right?
Which triggers a different feeling that's based on experience. And so then it makes sense then that the stronger the emotion you feel towards that person, the more you pay attention to them. And where you place your attention is where you place your energy. So you're giving your power away to change to that person or that circumstance. And it's entirely possible that your reality is staying the same because your energy is the same. That you, in fact, are contributing to that reality staying exactly unchangeable, right? So then you take a person, and they've had a moderately difficult past. Everybody's got a story, but when does the story end? You know,
right?
And now is the new later, right? I mean, it really is.
Now is the new later.
Yeah, like if you want to change that now, okay, so the person understands fundamentally they haven't changed since that event. They're feeling the same emotion they felt from 20 years ago, and somehow their personality is in the past, right? Okay, so the person then has to overcome that emotional state. And so they're sitting in the meditation, and that's part of their identity, and meditation is getting beyond yourself. And as you're sitting there, all of a sudden you start getting frustrated and angry and resentful towards your ex. You're one of two choices. Just go fully down that rabbit hole for the next hour and see how that feels at the end. Or ask yourself, is this loving to me? Justified or not, the only person it's going to affect is me. Okay.
Is this loving to me or for me?
Yeah, it was not either one.
Right,
It's
right.
not either one. Okay, so if I could, in my meditation, really say, okay, this isn't loving to me. I know this isn't right. Even though I want to make them wrong, I'm just going to work. I'm going to work on settling my body down from that emotional state. If I'm successful at regulating that emotion and no longer allowing the body to feel that emotion, I'm inhibiting that thought and feeling, that image and emotion, I'm breaking that conditioning response. If I'm successful at doing that, if I lower the volume to that emotion, I'm going to take my attention off that person or problem, which means I'm going to be taking my power back, right? Because I'm going to draw my energy. I'm going to build my own field, right? I'm no longer giving them my power to change energetically. I'm no longer giving them my attention, my energy. If I overcome the emotion, I'll take my attention off that person and I'll begin to build my own electromagnetic field. Now there's energy to create. Now there's energy to heal. Now there's energy for a whole new future. And lo and behold, when you lower the volume to that emotion, you take your attention off that person, that's forgiveness.
Wow.
Because if you don't feel the emotion any longer, then you no longer have your attention on that person and your life truly changes. You'll never hold on to that emotion again.
But why are so many people holding on to resentment of what someone did in a relationship in their past versus allowing them to find forgiveness and peace about it? Maybe it's not agreeing that it was okay what they did, but why do people hold on to resentment for so long or anger about a past?
I think it's because people are afraid it's going to happen to them again.
Oh.
And when we have a traumatic event, big or small, in fact, you're always on the lookout for any signal in the environment, any person or circumstance that's going to be the smallest cue that's going to say, ooh, I've done this before, I better get ready for it. So we're in a constant state of bad news, waiting for the worst case scenario. So let me just finish this, okay?
Yeah.
Because the question really was about self-love. The person who lives in resentment is making themselves unhappy. A person who's judging everybody else because they're judging themselves is making themselves unhappy. The person who's complaining, blaming, making excuses, feel sorry for themselves, they're making themselves unhappy. There's nobody doing that to them. You say it's your ex? Okay, let's take your ex, let's put him in a straitjacket and shoot him to the moon. Now what?
You're still holding on to it.
You're still thinking that way and feeling that way, and that person is no longer in your life. You're defined by that story, by that past event. Okay. The person's truly sincere and thinks there's something other than that emotion of resentment. What's on the other side of it? Am I willing to sit through it long enough? And no matter how much the pain is or what my body does, I'm going to sit this one out. I'm going to work with my body and keep bringing it back into the present moment. It's like training an animal. You keep doing it over and over again. You stay. I'm not getting up. I'm not eating. I'm not moving. We're going to keep lowering the volume. You keep reconditioning the body to a new mind. Sooner or later, it surrenders. It surrenders to a new mind. When that occurs, there's that liberation of energy, and energy moves into the heart, and you feel love for yourself. You feel a respect for yourself. You feel an honor for yourself. Something, you took your power back. You built your field. Something feels right. When we look at the data of people who do this, and we see their scans, their brain scans, or we see their HRV measurements, and they get good at this. We measure their oxytocin levels. Now, oxytocin is the love chemical, right? And it's made in the pituitary gland. It is the love chemical, causes us to bond, to connect, to unify. And when I showed the values of oxytocin levels with these people to scientists, they're sometimes 200 times above normal. Now, that's not a little love. That's a lot of love.
It's an explosion of love.
It's a lot of love. And so oxytocin signals nitric oxide, and nitric oxide signals another chemical called endothelial-derived relaxing factor. And that chemical causes the arteries in your heart and your lungs to literally open up, and blood flows into your heart, and your heart is filled with energy, just like when it engorges the sexual organs. There's an engorgement of blood in there, and it activates it with energy, and there's a mind that's created. It's a consciousness.
Wow.
Now, this one opens up. It's a whole different consciousness. In fact, the research on oxytocin shows that the slightest elevation in oxytocin, it's impossible to hold a grudge. It's impossible. You say, dude, I feel so good. Like, I'm good. Like, no, I'm good. I'm really good.
Oh.
Now, that kind of state means I don't want to feel anything else but this. So I am not going to compromise myself or my energy to a lower denominator just because of you. In fact, I'm really good around you. I'm really okay. I feel so good. I don't want to judge you because I don't want to lose this feeling. Right. So then imagine being around a cat like that. Being around a person like that, that's really easy to be around because they're okay with themselves. And when they're okay with themselves, they relate with people differently. In fact, they relate with them unconditionally. They just love them unconditionally, and that causes an attraction. It causes a bond, right? So one of the things I learned last year in watching people, in this work and week-long events, I do my best to pay really close attention. Looked out at an audience one day, and I looked out in the room. We just finished a walking meditation. Everybody sat down, and I kind of glanced around the room, and everybody had this radiant smile. And I said to them, hey, who's making you happy, by the way? Who's making you happy? There's nobody doing that to you. You're doing that to you. You're making yourself, you're not relying on anybody in your life to do that. Now, that is an attractive energy. That's the person who relates well with money. There's a relationship with money. They relate well with people. They're very giving. They're very caring. They want nothing in return. They're more present because that's who they're practicing being. And so there's a natural affinity, a natural attraction because the person is really present and they're really okay. And something is different about them.